this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. Today is a new day, new day, new day. And I can see a new way, new way, new way. It's gonna be good, gonna be good, gonna be good. 'Cause everything is new today. Today's made a soft play, soft play, soft play. And I can say it my way, my way, my way. It's gonna be good, gonna be good, gonna be good. 'Cause everything is new today. Good morning. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living here in the heart of Las Cruces, where our vision is a world in loving partnership for the good of all. Wow, it's great to see you all out and about this morning. I want to welcome anyone visiting for the first time and let you know that there are visitor packets at both doors if you'd like to pick one up. And also to remind everyone to make sure that their phones are on vibrate. Lots of people are moving for those phones. We are preparing for some upcoming events. There are several coats being gathered already. We'll start putting them out very soon. So if anyone has extra coats in their closets, we put them out front and let people take them for free as they need them and drop some off as you don't need them. And we're preparing for the Renaissance Fair that's coming up the first weekend in November. And some people let me know that to just say we need volunteers doesn't work, that you might want to know a little bit about what we do. So I'll make it brief, but we have Friday afternoon, they set up the whole building, I guess you would call it, that we do the sales from. So we need people that are a little stronger that can help set up and put that whole thing together. Then on Saturday, we set up and get ready for the cooking at 8 o'clock in the morning and have a couple hours to warm up water and get things in place. Then we start serving when people come through the doors, and we're serving non-stop until we close up in the afternoon. Serving is a line that makes pastrami sandwiches and a line that makes the kosher hot dogs, and then we have somebody that takes care of the money part. So all of those are different pieces. If any of that calls to you, as a volunteer, when you're done with your shift, you get to see the Renaissance Fair for free. So we'll need your name on the list out there so we can give it to the people that will let you in for free. So if you want to help, that would be fabulous. And we will be having an orientation meeting Tuesday the 19th, which is this coming Tuesday at 5 o'clock out at Temple Bethel, because we share this event with Temple Bethel. It's their equipment, and we work on Saturdays so they can go to Temple, and then they work on Sundays so that we can be here. So it's a wonderful joint effort. At this time, please welcome our practitioner in service.
Good day. At the Center for Spiritual Living, we believe in the power of prayer, which we call spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. Please fill out a prayer request found on the card in the pocket in the chair around you. And you can place it in the God can, which is on the table as you exit the sanctuary, or it is in the offering plate, which is on a table on both exits to the space. The prayer request also on our website is a prayer request button that you can use, and that goes right to our prayer team. Our prayer team is made up of practitioners and ministers from the local New Thought communities, and they will pray with you in regard to your request. They will pray for you in regard to your request. In addition, you can contact a practitioner after service if you would like a quick treatment. Practitioners are wearing these stoles. And Reverend Bonnie is always available for your prayer needs as well. And now it is time for song, silence, and prayer.
1. In this moment, I am one. One is this moment. One, one, one. This moment is what I am. Love. In this moment, I am love. Love is this moment. Love, love, love. This moment is what I am. In this moment, I am still. Still is this moment. Still, still, still. This moment is what I am.
It is with gratitude and thanksgiving we are gathered here today and know that Mother, Father, God is in this space. At the center of our beings, we are all one with this divine presence, all powerful, all knowing, everywhere present. And today, we are grateful for the time together and know that this spiritual presence in us, through us and around us, provides us and gives us the perfect words from our speaker, Peggy Shinn, and the music, and the love from Reverend Bonnie and the practitioners and everyone in this space. And we are so grateful for this time and this treasure that we have together. For this and so much more, I do give thanks, and so it is. The reading today is from my iPad. It's from the Ernest Holmes Papers, a collection of 3 of his works. And this is from a chapter called This Thing Called Life. In March of 1958, Dr. Ernest Holmes went to Florida to speak to Fort Lauderdale, St. Petersburg, Orlando, and Miami. The last talk of this series was given in Miami on March 26th. He selected the title of his favorite book, This Thing Called Life, as his topic for the evening. Now life exists. Nothing is more certain. Life is intelligent. It responds to us. We happen to believe it's a spiritual presence everywhere, equally distributed, and within us and around us and everywhere else. Life. Call it God. Call it anything you want to. There is something present with us and in us, out of whose essence all things are made, within whose creative imagination all things are formed, and by whose inexorable and immutable laws all things are held in place. This is self-evident. Here we are, and we couldn't be here if things were not true. This thing called life, now what has that to do with human personality? This thing called life is the human personality. Just as we have not seen God, we have not seen each other. We think we have seen each other, but we haven't. We have seen the objective manifestation of something that's impelled and propelled by an invisible awareness, which is the real self.
Love is but a song we sing, fear's the way we die. You can make the mountains ring, or make the angels cry. Though the bird is on the wing, you may not know why. Come on, people now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Some may come and some will go, people surely pass. When the one that left us here returns for us at last, we are but a moment's sunlight fading in the grass. Come on, people now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Come on, people now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Try to love one another right now. If you hear the song I sing, you will understand. You hold the key to love and fear, all in your trembling hand. Just one key unlocks them both. It's there at your command. Come on, people, now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together. Try to love one another right now. Yeah, come on, people, now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together. Try to love one another right now. I said, come on, people, now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together. Try to love one another right now. Right now. Right now.
Okay, I felt the energy rise. Even though I see some eyes closed trying to get into the moment, I felt the energy rise. Thank you. That was fabulous. As we are, not just trying, we are loving each other right now. And I think we're doing a great job in this community. And today we have someone we love very much to have back in our presence, someone who's very special to us. And it's one of our practitioners who's been around a long time, Peggy Shinn. And her presentations are always uplifting, interesting, and inspiring. She's about transforming lives, her own and others, through the spiritual principles of science of mind. She's currently serving as a religious science practitioner at Oasis Teaching Chapter. She has many years of experience as a teacher and practitioner, both in the U.S. and abroad. She helps to take this message to the Spanish-speaking world. And for that, I am very grateful to her because she's doing what I would love to do, but I don't speak Spanish well enough. So please help me welcome Peggy Shinn.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. I'd like to make a little correction when you're talking about my biography there. I sent a note to the gal at the center after I saw it in the newsletter, but for the last 4 years, my practitioner's license has been held at the Center for Spiritual Living in Lake Chapala, Jalisco, Mexico. And I don't know how I managed to not get that fixed with you all in my bio, but it didn't happen. So I thought, well, I'll correct it all right now since you mentioned it again. And I'm about to renew my practitioner's license again, so it will be for another 2 years that I expect to be a practitioner there in Mexico. Actually, so much more of my work is there than here. I'm in town and I come to speak here, or I speak at Wellspring, or wherever I'm invited, or volunteer my comments when I'm not invited sometimes, but it's okay. You know, my father used to call me the queen of unsolicited advice. So if you've had some of that from me, you know, that's what you can call it. I have got my phone in here. I just got back from Mexico, as a matter of fact, Friday night at midnight. And I think many of you know what yesterday was about with the funerals for the Richies, and today we have Terry Lund. Anyway, but I've got this phone on airplane mode, so hopefully it's not going to cause any trouble. But one of the things that happened for me in Mexico is my computer crashed, and I ended up having to leave it down there. So I don't have an iPad that's bigger screen like what Jennifer had, but I've got my cell phone here. So this has got my notes in it, such as they are for the talk today. And I'm trying to get back to the beginning of it again. So when I first was exposed to reading what your theme was for the month about, let's see if I can get it straight, because I always kind of switch it around in my mind. Going further together? That's it, yeah. So the former English teacher in me kind of welled up when I read that, because I thought, we spent a lot of years with English teachers spent a lot of years trying to help people learn how to use those two words, further and farther, appropriately in their speaking and writing. And I've tried to kind of suppress that old English teacher in my years since Science of Mind came into my world, because it's a judger. She's a judger, right? And because looking for errors in grammar and usage all the time, the way we were kind of trained in the teaching of English back in my day. This was, I haven't taught, well, I've taught English as a second language, but I haven't taught English since 1973. So it's been a while. That was my time, no, 72, maybe it was 72, yeah. But it got me to thinking about this concept of further and farther and how I could maybe bring that into our metaphysical perspective about it. The way we were trying to inform our students about the uses of the words further and farther is that further has something to do with abstract elements of things, a little bit of your concept of deeper, not wider, is the concept of what we teach about how to use the word further in our talk and in our writing. And I'm choosing to call that consciousness, that the furtherance of ourselves is in the deepening of our consciousness. And the word farther was intended to be used in the context of distance or measurable, ground covered. I'm sorry. I didn't want to hit the mic with my with my gesticulating, I guess I'd call it, my gestures. That farther is something that has to do with distance and is maybe measurable, quantifiable, maybe even has a destination, maybe has a beginning and an end. And so from that perspective, I thought, okay, well, the word farther has more to do maybe with what we see in the manifestation of the real world, the physical process of something that has ability to be quantified or measured. And we'll call that results. And I think we all know, who've been around teachings of Science of Mind for a while, that consciousness comes first. And then the results come after in the process of our spiritual evolution. We have a concept of treatment that Jennifer talked to us about a little bit when she read us the story from Ernest Holmes, that 1958 would be among the last years of his life that you were talking about. So I think the later Ernest was a more mystical person in many ways, or got back to his original mysticism, maybe more so in that earlier time. So I want to talk today about this further, farther idea, and that going further together is going to take us farther together in our results of our individual spiritual evolution and that of the planet. So I watched Lily's talk from last week, where she talked about going further together as being an adventure in love. And my talk today is going to be more about connection and collaboration and cooperation, the togetherness. And I have to tell you guys, this was like yesterday evening, I think, when I first was starting to think a little bit more about, I don't know what the musicians are going to talk about or what Jennifer's going to read, and it's always a kind of a surprise for me, and I try to weave it into my talk. And I thought, I don't know what you could come up with songs about. It must be something about togetherness or about together. And the only song that came to my mind was, "Come on, people, get together." And here you are playing it. And I was like, oh, I can't believe that. But this is about what I'm going to talk about today, too, is the transference of thought. And I must have gotten it from you guys, because you probably were already rehearsing it before I thought about it last night, right? Anyway, but this is a part of the idea of collaboration, connection, and cooperation. As we go further to get farther, we're bringing together the consciousness that produces the results that are out there for us as we are connected. This in, through, around, and for that Jennifer mentioned both in her opening prayer and that she read about in the reading from Ernest Holmes is how this concept of creative mind really works, that we have up here on this symbol up here, that you start out with the thought or the idea, that's the cause. Then there's this creative medium, this sort of loosey-goosey part of it, or the soil, or whatever we've been taught or are teaching now. And then suddenly there's this manifestation or result, or sometimes not so suddenly. Someone came up to me yesterday after the funeral and talked to me about a class that she took with me years ago at Wellspring, where she said that she'd always remembered my stoplight treatment, and that she was working, it was the visioning class, for any of you in the room that might have been in that class that we did at Wellspring a few years back. And she said, I've always remembered how to do the treatment because of that. And in that class, I was visioning for this thing that I was so sure was going to come about, and I had my heart set on it. And it didn't happen that way. It happened, but it happened in a different way. And it took a little longer, she said, than I was telling God it was supposed to happen in. And so she told me that she wanted to thank me for that lesson that she took to heart, and then it made all the difference in her world, what actually did happen instead of what she thought was supposed to look like, and how it looked differently in the outcome. And well, I guess it's not, it made a lot of difference in her life since then. It's only been about maybe 7-8 years ago that we did that class. I also had thought about the concept that we're being taught in business development and business classes that I've gotten over the years in my real estate career. This acronym of TEAM, where the TEAM is together, everyone achieves more. If there's anyone in here that hasn't heard that, I thought I wanted to mention that too. But technology has brought us into a world that we now think we're all connected. And we all have the opportunity to be creative and collaborative through connections that we can make online, whether it's with friends or people that we already know, or people across the country or in the other part of the world that we're playing Scrabble with, or any of these things that we can do with the technology that we have today. And yet, it seems to me that what I've watched evolve in many respects with the technology, and especially perhaps during the last couple of years with the COVID shutdown and people going even further into their own, being confined to quarters, let's say, for sure, for the better part of a year, that we're like this all the time now. We got our face in a screen, and we're what they now term as together alone, or alone together, however you may have heard it, that we're together alone. I witnessed this at a restaurant that I went to a number of years back with my mother and my sister, when this was just more and more becoming the norm. There's a young couple sitting at the restaurant table, obviously a romantically involved couple, each one sitting on opposite sides of the table with their cell phone in their face. And then they would pause and they'd hold hands for a minute, and then they'd go back to the screen, and then they would be checking something on Facebook or wherever it probably, maybe at that point time it was MySpace or something like that. That was the kind of the precursor to Facebook. And then one of them sent it to the other one, and then they're laughing, and then they're, back in the screen again. And I watched that whole scenario and thought, yeah, we're alone together for sure. They were alone together. And this COVID thing, I think, has maybe worsened it, and people became even more dependent upon their connection to the outside world coming in through the screens. But I have a metaphor that I came up with last week that I wanted to share with you for how I see this working on the cooperative, connected, and collaborative level. In the little town of Ajijic, which has about population 10,000 that swells to 30,000 in the height of the tourist season in the wintertime, when the Canadians come down there to Mexico, there's only one main road. It's like Ruidoso, if you've been to Ruidoso, that's like 7-10 miles of Main Street, kind of. And it's the only street that actually has any pavement that's asphalt or concrete. All the rest of the streets of the village are the original, or they're probably not the original stones, but that's how the town was originally put together, with cobblestone streets, which are a little tougher on your car and the shock system, and could be a little bit slower. And for the tourists, they don't really even hardly know how to navigate the back roads. So in certain times of the year, and now even in the summertime, we're having so many year-round residents moving in that roadway can be pretty jammed up. And it can take a long time to get across town by American culture standards, where when there's a light that's red, we stop. When somebody wants to turn left and they've stopped our line of traffic, we have to wait and wait and wait and wait if they're not at a stoplight that's going to give them an opportunity to turn left with an arrow like we have here. So the culture there is one of higher level of consciousness, in my opinion. They have gone further in their own understanding of how to collaborate and connect and cooperate in the traffic there, such that they can get farther faster by going down the roadway more readily than they would have otherwise if they sat and waited and waited and waited for these things to go in the normal routine of stoplights or waiting for someone else to be given the right-of-way. And it seems to me like in observing it that somebody just at the right time will stop their line of traffic that has the actual right-of-way and will allow the person who wants to turn left against the traffic to go, so that everybody that otherwise would get backed up behind them can go as well. And there's this dance that's done about it of either taking the right, and that person who wants to turn left has to know it's okay for me to do that. Or even at the stoplight that's turning red and just about maybe to turn green, and you're there signaling to turn left, the opposite lane driver will flash their lights or hit their horn or give you some signal. They'll connect with you to say, hey, you go before me. You go before I go, so that you won't be holding up that line of traffic because the light's turning green now and I'm going to get to go, but I'm going to let you go first. So to me, that is a consciousness level that we haven't come to have here, but it's observable there every day on the roadway. And I think it is an idea that represents going further in consciousness and understanding and comprehension and love for your fellow man and the greater collective good of moving along the highway, that they're going further and it's farther together. So now back to Science of Mind. I want to share with you a little bit about what I think that science has to say about this concept of the benefits of collective collaboration and working together. And I want to read to you something from Science of Mind textbook. I do have this book with me. I have several of them, and this is the one I like to write in. I have others that I don't write in, but this one's got all kinds of things underlined and scored and a whole bunch of marks and all that. This is page 179-4, where Ernest talks about what's in, through, and around and for us in relationship to that spiritual essence that I liked what you read, Jennifer, about the inexorable energy that holds things in place. That was a really cool turn of phrase, I thought. But here he's talking about healing, and this is what I want to talk about too, is this concept of the collective working together to improve individually and collectively the healing that we all are experiencing as we move through our spiritual journey. So he says there is no personal responsibility in healing. We should not feel that we put the power into the word. The practitioner directs the power and then lets it work. One does not hold thought in mental healing. He loosens the thought. A practitioner does not try to suggest or hypnotize or mentally influence. The practitioner simply seeks to know that it was a spirit, that it is, to know that man is now a spiritual being. And he holds to that belief no matter what appearance may be. Right mental treatment does not tire the one giving the treatment. Personal magnetism has nothing to do with mental healing. The whole basis of the possibility of mental healing rests upon the premise that we all live in one creative mind, which then reacts to our beliefs. It is though we were there with a universal ear, listening to and hearing everything that we say, feel, or think, and then reacting to it. Healing is not a process, but a revelation, for the revealing of the perfect man always heals. If there is process, if there is one, it is the time and the thought that it takes to get to arrive at the correct understanding of man's perfect state in spirit. So that time that it takes to get to arrive, to get to the result, is moving farther after having gone further into a consciousness. I have, for many years, been fond of saying that these are things that I've learned from Science of Mind. They're not direct quotes from Ernest because I don't really remember the direct quotes anymore. But basically that my healing is your healing and your healing is my healing. And our healing is the healing of all humankind, and hopefully the rest of the planet along with us. And that there is no process in healing, only in the revealing. And I think that's what this little excerpt that I just read to you reinforces in my mind. And then I've come upon something in the last few years that has really broadened my understanding of my little phrase that my healing is your healing and your healing is my healing. Because now science is showing us that, whoops, my phone's been off long enough to lose this, that the science is out there now proving up all of what we just read there from Ernest, that we are in this one creative mind, that there is a listening and a hearing and a reacting and a transmission, I would call it, a transmission of that thought and feeling that is ongoing all the time. It's not just the universe reacting to my thought about me and showing up in my life as I perceive, believe, and receive. That's how it works as I believe it. I have a belief, that belief sets up my perceiving. My perceiving causes this reaction that I just read about that shows up in the receiving, how I receive my life, how it comes through to me. This thing called my life, this thing called life that Jennifer read to us from, is all about how life lives itself through us. And as Reverend Sandy always used to say, are you giving God a good time? So a few years ago, I went to California for a reunion of a few friends from my childhood. And these are people that I've known since I was like 4 and 5 years old. So we have gals that we were girlfriends together all through school. I grew up in a very small town. We had a fairly stable population. I probably had, out of the 80 some odd people that I graduated high school with, probably a good 50 of them easily that I started kindergarten with and graduated high school with. So it's that kind of thing that is not that common anymore, but it was in my world as I grew up in this small town in mid-Missouri. Anyway, we were in Carmel Valley, California, and my girlfriend there, who actually she and I had discovered a few years prior at another reunion back in Missouri. I think it was their 45th high school reunion or something like that. I always went to their reunions as well as mine because these gals are all older than I am, a year or 2 years older. And so I'd go to their reunions so I could catch up with them. But we discovered that we both kind of knew something about Science of Mind. At that point in time, I was a practitioner. She never actually took a lot of classes or studied, but she was exposed to it living after she moved from Dallas, Texas, to Carmel Valley, California. She got involved with the Center for Spiritual Living there in Monterey, which was at that time a part of RSI. And back in those days, when there was RSI, which is Religious Science International, and UCORS, United Church of Religious Science, which is now one thing called Centers for Spiritual Living. But back in those days, at Asilomar, if you have heard of Asilomar, it was a place where religious scientists used to go in the summertime for summer camp, kind of, with Ernest Holmes having started it back in the day. And I found out she was going to go to Asilomar. This is when we were in Missouri. And I said, you're going to go to Asilomar? When? And she told me, and it was the week, there was 2 weeks set aside at Asilomar, one that RSI went to and one that UCORS went to, and it sometimes was the same speakers and sometimes not. And that was a year that I knew Joan Boroshenko was going to be there. I don't know if you've heard of her or not, but you ought to look her up if you're not familiar with her work. And so we kind of had an extra bond at that level of the spirituality of what we were both pursuing. So when I was in Carmel, this 3 or 4 years ago now, she couldn't wait to tell me about what she'd been up to that she wanted me to be aware of. She had become a healing touch practitioner since moving to California 15, 20 years ago now. It's almost been, I guess. And her latter time in the work before I saw her, that reunion, was that the one in California, that she was now training healing touch practitioners. And they primarily were working in treating cancer patients, working with cancer patients who had been referred to them by physicians in this area in the Monterey Peninsula for the most part, and with a specific clinic there, most of whom the doctors treat patients were cancer patients, many with sort of grim diagnoses, if you know what I mean. And so a lot of their work was also at the palliative level, at the near-death level, where they had patients who were stage 4 and that sort of thing. So she'd been doing a lot of good work there, and I knew about that. And she told me how she'd been really involved in doubling down with this since she'd had this training in something called The Power of 8. Lynn McTaggart had written a book called The Power of 8. I think it came out in 2016, 2017, something like that. And she said, Peggy, you've got to do this. You've got to do this work. It is so wonderful. And she said, we've seen so many good results with it with our patients since we started the work of Power of the 8, and with the people who are my practitioners in training. She said, I've seen remarkable things happen for them too. So she said, promise me when you get back to New Mexico that you'll look this gal up, you'll look up this work, you'll look up this book. And I did do it. And it was right before I was preparing to go back to Mexico. But I will just tell you a little bit about what the book is, and then I'm going to tell you about my experience of using those techniques and that concept of collective, collaborative connection to heal others and yourself. So in the book, The Power of 8, McTaggart reveals her remarkable findings from 10 years of experiments. I think they had something like 26 double-blind experiments that they had done in this concept of thought transmission, energy transmission, not just with somebody in the room with you physically at the moment, but with people in other parts of the building, other parts of the world. Some of you may have heard of some of these kinds of things that were started many years ago by Larry Dossey is the first one that I know of personally that came out with teaching us how to transmit healing through prayer thought and move in the direction of someone else. And Lynn McTaggart, the author of this book, had been exposed to that kind of concept, and she was a science journalist and decided this is a bunch of woo-woo crap, and this is not possible. So she initially began her research many years back. This has been, 25 years or maybe 30 years ago, with the idea in mind that she wanted to debunk this whole concept of psychic healing, I think is what she saw it as at that point. And, we know today, and from the 3 major works that she has authored with her tests and studies, she turned around from being the debunker to being the believer after doing all the research and conducting experiments. So the first book she wrote was called The Field, and that book pretty much talks about what your reading was about this morning and about what I read to you that Ernest Holmes wrote, who we all have known for as long as any of us have been enamored of Ernest Holmes' work. What a prescient, precognitive, precognition is what, he has a lot of foresight about all the things that were coming to be, and his works were written, before quantum physics was a household word or even hardly known about by scientists. But she had 10 years of experiments when she started on the process of writing The Field of it, and then later the next book was called The Intention Experiment, in which she has lots and lots of research to show. And of course, Dossey's initial works have a lot of research that he did too, Dr. Larry Dossey. So that's when she wrote this book, she wrote that what it does is it reveals the remarkable findings from 10 years of experimenting with small and large groups about how the power of a group intention can heal our lives and change the world for better. This is what I want to have us invite a consideration of going further, to go farther in the healing of ourselves and others and the planet by collectively sharing an intention in a particular moment and place and time. This is how her experiments were all done. So she said, when individuals in a group focus their intention together on a single target, she calls it a target, it could be a person, a situation, a thing, a powerful collective dynamic emerges that can heal long-standing conditions, mend fractured relationships, lower violence, and even rekindle life's purpose for some. But the greatest untold truth of all is that group intention has a mirror effect, not only affecting the recipient, but also reflecting back on those who are sending the love and the intention. I don't know about you, but I'd love to see all of these things handled, right? Long-standing conditions, fractured relationships, reduction of violence, rekindling life's purpose. I'd take any one of those on a given day, be really happy to have those things fixed in the world, right? So I left here going back to Mexico, but I had a phone call from a friend right before I left, asking me if she could hire me as a practitioner for her son, who's living in Hawaii and had been diagnosed with esophageal cancer. And I said, yeah, I'd be happy to help. But let me give you an idea that I'm just now exploring that I think we could get even better. I said, how would you like to have about 8 practitioners double down on the thing, not just me by myself? So when I got to Mexico, we solicited some other gals that were involved in a spiritual group that she was part of down there. We had a meeting that they came to, and we had one of them be the target so that we could just practice this, see, is this going to give us any reason to want to take this further or not? And the woman that we had who volunteered to be the target just shared with us at the end of it all how she felt this love and this energy and this vibration that was palpable to her from just being in the center in the circle. And I had asked this woman to bring a photograph of her son so we'd see if we could take it to the next level. And that was a good enough result that I thought we could take it to the next level and work with him. Well, the upshot of the whole thing was we put the photo of him in the center and we started working on him. He had radiation treatment, wasn't even able to talk to me as his practitioner. So we were doing it all by energy transfer for the most part and some email. And he knew that we had this group of people that were sending him the thing. So we formulated the intention declaration statement, which is realization of our treatment or affirmation, whatever you might want to call it, that we're holding the intention for this person and sending that energy out in love all together now. Not just trying, like you said, but all together now. And we weren't able to meet regularly in person, but we had an appointment of 10 o'clock each night. We would ramp ourselves up in loving energy and send that intention of healing to him using that declaration repeated over and over and over again. So there were 8 of us collectively sending that intention and that love to him at that time of the night, each night. And by the time we started the group, we only had 6 weeks between the time that the surgery that he was supposed to have for this tumor removal had been scheduled. So he was, we didn't know much about what was going on or what was measurable or quantifiable or anything like that, about how much farther were we going by going further into our consciousness with him as the target. But about 2 weeks or so out from the surgery in the initial preparatory stuff that they do, he went back in for the studies and the scans to be done so they could begin to see what's actually transpiring with this tumor. So at that point, it was 70% gone. And the doctors were pretty excited about that. Of course, they thought it was their radiation, and they wondered, what have we done that this has happened so well? And then when he went in a few days before the actual surgery was supposed to happen, the tumor was gone on the scans. He elected to have the surgery because part of it was still to be reconstructing his esophagus from the damage that was done with the radiation. And they went in to do the surgery, and there was at least one of his doctors that thought they were still going to have something to have to take out, even though the scans didn't look like there was anything there. And there was nothing there to be removed in terms of cancerous tumor or cells. And he had the reconstructive surgery. He's fine, alive, and well today. I've talked to him since then, and he's doing great. He was in pretty good physical condition in Hawaii there. He was a paddleboard racing guy. So he was an athlete. And during the same time frame, he was following a plant-based diet, which was pretty healthy, I think, for somebody. This is highly recommended for people who are trying to heal from anything, especially from cancer. But we kind of think we had something to do with that as well. So that was my first experience of using the Power of 8 personally and facilitating that group. And I'd love to offer that here for those of you who might be interested in starting any group. I'm going to be here a couple of months, and that'd be enough to get something rolling. And we could work on just, people here and you yourself. But what Lynn learned in her research, and the reason she finally wrote the book, The Power of 8, is in her intention experiment tours of book promotion and workshops and things that she would give, she began to notice that the people who were the senders, the intenders, were getting better. And they were writing her emails and reporting about little miracles that had happened in their lives. And she just thought, well, this is anecdotal, because she's a scientist. She's a research scientist, a journalist. And it got to be to the place where she felt like, I can't ignore this any longer, and we're going to have to do some experiments to see if this is really working on the people who are doing the intention sending. So they did experiments on that before she wrote this book. I don't have the book with me. Mine is in Mexico, but I'm sure Randy can find it and put it up in the video, so if you can see The Power of 8 by Lynn McTaggart. But if you're interested here at the Mastering Life Center, the Center for Spiritual Living, and at Wellspring, maybe they'd like to put something together too. If you're interested to pursue this idea of going further and getting farther together, I think we could do that. And I want to close with this last quote from Lynn. Oh, and if you want to do that, just come see me, or, send me an email, PeggyShinn@gmail.com. It's my name at Gmail. And we'll see if you want to put something together. We'll talk with Bonnie. I didn't give her any advance notice about this, but I also can send you the prologue where she tells the whole story in better detail than I did of how she got to where she got to producing this book and this work, which is producing a lot of healing. And there's stuff on YouTube also with her. But just get with me and we'll get it this way. She says, the outcome of the group intention experiments are remarkable, but they aren't really the point of the story. Lynn says, this story is about the miraculous power that you hold inside of you, that I have inside of me, that we have inside of us collectively, for you to heal your own life. This miraculous power you hold inside of you to heal your own life, which gets unleashed, she said, ironically, the moment you stop thinking about yourself. So come on, people, let's get it together. Namaste.
Let's thank Peggy one more time. Thank you so much. Okay, and she mentioned the Mastery and Life Center. For those of you who don't know, this used to be called the Mastery and Life Center, or the same center now known as the Centers for Spiritual Living. But Peggy has been around and served this center for many years back in the day when it was Mastery and Life Center. So we're grateful. We're grateful to your words.
First Church of Religious Science.
Yeah, First Church of Religious Science, which is still our official name, actually. So, yeah. So let's just take a moment to collect that energy. Practitioners, please join me by standing around the room with your energy. And let's just hold in our sense of beingness, our connection with that love, that Peggy was talking about, that collective, collaborative connection that happens as we sit in this room right now. And just hold in your mind's eye anyone that you want to lift up to experience this energy. And we will know that it is connected in the one as we send and hold that intention of wholeness and health and love for each individual that our individual selves are lifting up right now. Feeling the love that moves in and through us, knowing that we are an expression of that love, and knowing as we hold the intention of sending the love through us out into the world, that it is done exactly like that, that healing takes place, that that connection is realized and felt, and the wholeness is experienced. And so it's with gratitude that I take in the words of Peggy today, the reminder of what we can do as a whole, what we can do even if we are alone in our homes with intention as we come together at a specific time and in a specific way to focus on bringing more love into the world. And so I know that her words today have begun a planting of a seed that is going to take transformation and moving us forward as a community. And that in connection with her community in Chapala and Ajijic, I know that we are one in seeing that grow throughout the world. And so I'm grateful for this time together and for the words that she has brought us today and this intention that has now been planted into the law and is already so in the mind of God, as we say together, and so it is.
I gladly walk across the desert with no shoes upon my feet to share with you the last bite of bread I had to eat. I would swim out to save you in your sea of broken dreams when all your hopes are sinking. Let me show you what love means. Love can build a bridge between your heart and mine. Love can build a bridge. Don't you think it's time? Don't you think it's time? I would whisper
Was that not the perfect song?
Yes, that was the theme song from the Inner Child Journeys. Maybe a person or two here took the Inner Child Journeys and remembers that song. That's where I learned it.
Wow, that was perfect. And talk about, yeah, the one mind working together this morning. The two songs were absolutely perfect, and the talk was perfect. And this weekend, we have been celebrating some lives that touched ours with love. And I just want to recognize that we acknowledged Reverend Sam and Nancy yesterday. And since Robert Yee is here, I want to acknowledge that he did a beautiful video in their honor. And if you did not get to see it, I'm sure he can send you a link, or we can find a way for you to see it. I don't know if I'm allowed to pass it along, but I have the link to it. It was a fantastic culmination of what they brought to the community. And I was asked to let you all know that this afternoon, Unity will also be Zooming their remembrance of Reverend Terry, in addition to meeting at 2 o'clock at the Alameda House. So if you would like to Zoom in instead of be there in person, see me afterward, and I can either email you the link that they sent me, or I can give you the codes and you can type them in yourself. But there's that option as well for her remembrance today. And today, at this time, is when we have a way of giving back and saying thank you and recognizing the space where we have been fed spiritually today. And 10% of what comes in from all of you this month is going to support Safe Haven Animal Sanctuary. And the work that we do, the healing that we see in the world, is not just for the humans, it's for all the animals on the planet, because we are all connected. If they don't survive, we don't survive. It's down to the bees, right? So Safe Haven strives to be a leader in the care and placement of cats and dogs as animal companions in nurturing homes. And so 10% will go to support them from us this month. At this time, please repeat after me and just feel these words, because I believe it is so true. Divine love through me, blesses and multiplies, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, in me. And so it is.
We are so blessed. We are so blessed. We are so grateful for all that we have. We are so blessed. We are so blessed. We are so grateful. We are so blessed. We are so blessed. We are so blessed. We are so grateful for all that we have. We are so blessed. We are so blessed. We are so grateful. We are so blessed.
You feel it? Yeah, it feels wonderful. So as we stand and just send the energy around this room, picture the love that you feel for yourself and for each other moving around as we sing our closing song.
I live here in peace. I step out in love. I know everything I need is part of me. And I will not speak until I first think, is it kind and true? I need it. One life, God's life, my life now. One life, God's life, my life now. I leave it out in love. I know everything I need is part of me, and I will not speak until I first think. Is it kind and true? I need her. One life, God's life, my life now. One life, God's life, my